Well, hey there, Shooby Doodlers. How are you doing? And today it is Thursday, the 2nd of April. I should have done an April Fool's thing for you yesterday, really, shouldn't I? I did the most amazing April Fool's on a guy once. He had the most beautiful house you can ever imagine. It had a little river running through it and an island. He lent me his island as for a studio one summer. It was this beautiful place. And I did this thing and I did maps and all sorts of stuff. And on April the 1st, I sent him a government requisition for his rose garden, and that we were going to build a pumping station, a brick-built pumping station right in the middle of it. And he really believed it, and he phoned up the fake number, and I was going, hello, yes, and it took him about 6 months to work out quite who it was, and he wasn't very pleased when he found out it was me. Anyway, that was April the 1st. So today, what are we doing? We have got, I can see, we've got Helena on here, and do you know, I am in a pickle because normally I press a button and I can see it, but I'm okay because I can see things here. So we got Helena Campling says hello, Shoo. Joyce Cochran, who lives just down the road from our guest today, says hello, Shoo and Renita. This is going to be my reward for nearly finishing the accounts. I hope you are both well. Wait a minute, April the 6th, isn't it? I think the accounts, yeah, that's right. Nearly there. Jessica Taylor, hello. I came 3 minutes early. Renita Boyle, hey there, you're here. Trails TM, I'm coughing a lot today. Oh dear. And Story by September says hello. So here we are, and I'm going to introduce our special guest by pressing a button which will bring her on screen, and I would like to introduce you to the amazing storyteller, author, all sorts of things, Renita Boyle. And she should have just got. She's on the screen. There we are, and I can do applause as well. There we are. But I don't think.
Do a silent cheer.
I don't think you could. Well, we heard a great big cheer because I got sound effects. I can do. I can do all sorts of things. We can have a laugh.
Ooh, I like that.
And a little ting. It's not that good, but we could do a DJ air horn as well. So anyway, here we are. This is Renita Boyle, and hi. How are you up in sunny Scotland?
I am well, and I am going to show you my view out my kitchen window because I think you all need to see it.
I'm so envious of your view. It's just fantastic. I've sat in your kitchen and I've looked out on that view.
Greetings
it's just
from Wigtown and my kitchen this afternoon, whatever it happens to be.
Just beautiful. That's the estuary out there, isn't it?
Yes.
And,
so I don't think I'll put my face back on.
Well, I think that's absolutely gorgeous. And as are you. There we are. Yes. So shall I say how I first encountered you?
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, because you live in Wigtown, which is the Scottish book town, which is full of second-hand bookshops, and once a year you have the Wigtown Book Festival. Where I have now been many times, haven't I?
Yes, you have.
And I think the first time I met you, you were kind of... I was sort of doing a sound check, I think, in the big tent, waiting for lots of children to come in. And then you kind of burst onto the scene with a guitar around your head, doing some kind of ooey, 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 ooey kind of song. And I thought, who is this crazy lady?
I think we were doing the boogaloo. Hey you, hey you, can you do the boogaloo? Let's all do the boogaloo. And I made your own version, the shoogaloo.
That's the one, I think. Yes. And in fact, and I remember then there was one year when I did the Wigtown sketchbook. So
yes,
and I was staying in an apartment sort of right opposite the main tent, like probably about sort of 20 feet away, something like that. And I woke up one morning, because I didn't have to be up early in the morning, and I woke up to the sound of you warming up a school with a hoo-ah, hoo-ah, booga, booga, loo-ah. I thought, no, I'm in Wigtown. And
that's
so
my
tell
role.
us.
That's pretty much what I remembered for.
So many people listening to you will think, but wait a minute, she doesn't sound Scottish.
Ah.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Clear Lake, Wisconsin. Actually, I grew up on a dairy farm just outside of Clear Lake, Wisconsin. Hold on, I'm letting my dog in. Would you like to see her? Bonnie Belle, there she is. Yeah, that's what she feels today. So I grew up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
In Clear Lake, Wisconsin, in the USA. It's kind of, well, if you know your geography at all, it's by the Great Lake Superior.
Yeah.
And we had a farm, which we no longer have, but we had a farm there. And we also have a cabin, a little kind of cabin by in the Northwoods. And so that's where I grew up, and I grew up there until I was 21. And then, so that's where I grew up. Had my being, learned my storytelling skills to start with, and then when I was 21, I came on a trip to Scotland. I loved the country, came back the following year, met my husband. We got engaged on our third date, and then got married a year later. And so I think we're heading for, I think 35 or something years. I don't do numbers very well.
On your third date, you've got to be pretty sure for that, haven't you?
I guess when you know, you know. It's a little insane, but there you go.
Yeah. And so you stayed here ever since. But and you I think you should be back there now if the planes were working. Is that right?
Yes. So this is a very interesting thing, but every year the world celebrates Earth Day, and one of the people who began Earth Day, one of the founders of it, was Senator Gaylord Nelson, and he was from my tiny hometown in Clear Lake, Wisconsin, which is only 1,000 people big. It's a really tiny town. And so he actually was a senator, an amazing man, very forward-thinking in his ecology and ecological concerns, and began Earth Day 50 years ago on April 22nd. He was one of those people. So I was around for the very first Earth Day, and I think if people tell me correctly, my little kindergarten class picked rubbish on the first Earth Day.
Oh.
And so I should have been there. They asked me if I would come over to celebrate the 50th birthday of Earth Day with them this year, and I can't be there.
That's a shame, but you're with us.
Yes, I am.
That makes up for
Which
it.
Which is even almost better.
and so storytelling. You know, I know you're just full of beans, and you know you get up on the stage and you just wind up those kids and
then I send them
tell
home.
stories. Yeah, and then you send them home to their poor parents. Yeah, and so you know where does that come from, that storytelling thing? Because you kind of feel that in a little town in Clear Lake, middle of nowhere, it's there's not much storytelling going on there, is there?
Actually, I think it's because of that there's storytelling, because storytelling is absolutely intrinsic to who we are. Because people think that storytelling actually begins sometimes with reading. It doesn't. It actually begins with being able to tell stories to each other. It's a very tribal and communal thing, and our brains are wired for stories. There's this whole school of thought that actually our brains constantly rewrite the stories we tell to help us to survive, to make sense of things. It's a very, they build connections. So it probably isn't very surprising in a small place where there is a sense of community. Everybody told stories, whether they were life stories or folk tales or fables in those days. So I actually began storytelling for two reasons. It just was, I've actually been telling stories in front of hundreds and now thousands of people since I was 8 years old. And this was for two reasons. One was my great-grandfather Bob was a lumberjack, and they didn't have anything to do except things I can't really talk about, except sit around campfires and tell stories. So they would tell Paul Bunyan stories, who is every culture has a giant, and ours is Paul Bunyan. And he would tell stories and learn them around the campfire as a lumberjack in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. And then he never told those stories to his kids or even to his grandchildren, really. But they did tell him to his great-grandchildren. So I got to hear all his Paul Bunyan stories. So when we had show and tell at school, I wouldn't bring anything. I would bring my grandfather.
Okay.
And then he would tell stories. So I just naturally came to my love of folktales and fables from him. And then also my home church. If you were in my home church in Reeve, Wisconsin, hello, Reeve, if anybody's there. If you were in my home church, it didn't matter what you were, how old you were, or anything, you had to do something in church. So from a very early age, I was telling Bible stories in church. So that's where my storytelling background first began.
Right, sure, and then I should say that you live in the manse, which means the manse is where the Methodist minister lives. So you have some kind of relationship with the Methodist minister. So he was your third date.
Yes, he was my third date, but he was a chemist when I married him. I don't know how this happened.
Yeah. So he turned from a chemist into a Methodist minister. So then obviously
Scotland minister, yeah.
Yeah. So Bible stories.
I have to say that some people, this is my favorite thing. You might as well have your name on a sausage roll as a church roll, as they say.
So Bible stories have obviously played a big role as well in storytelling, and that's where the really great stories are. And I'm not a church goer, but I've been brought up in the English Christian tradition. And in fact, as I told you the other week, my script teacher when I was about sort of 8 or 9 was Archbishop Tutu, who just happened to be the curate up the road. It was a fantastic storyteller.
That's amazing.
And even now, sometimes I think I need to sort of tell a story to explain something, and sometimes it's so much better to explain things with a story, and then a parable, one of Jesus' parable will come to mind, and I think, should I say this? Because people are quite uncomfortable. Some people are quite uncomfortable with sort of Bible stories now, aren't they?
You're asking me? Oh yeah.
I'm asking you. Yeah, because you're at the sharp end of telling Bible stories. So
yes. So I think it's a very interesting thing because probably the way that I grew up telling stories and is not the way I maybe would tell them now, because my faith has developed and my beliefs have developed and they've changed and they've shifted. But what I do find really valuable about telling, and I do tell Bible stories, is I try to tell them very respectfully. I try to understand what meaning is behind them, what truth is, and also to help people explore them for themselves. So there is a whole, and I love this form of storytelling, there's a whole form of storytelling called godly play. And what I love about that form of storytelling is it's very quiet. It's very reflective. It doesn't tell you what to think. It just helps you to reflect for yourself on what the message of those stories are. It's not very didactic. And also, I do have a very strong faith. Sometimes. Sometimes I don't have any faith at all. It's a big journey when you go through these things. But the Bible stories that I learned in my childhood, sometimes they really give me a lot of strength, and particularly the Psalms, because they're very human, and they're pretty, they're very, very human, and I can usually find myself and whatever I'm feeling there in the Psalms.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly kind of think sometimes when if I'm feeling really critical about somebody or something, and I'm just about to say something, I can feel myself as an 8-year-old child sitting in church, and I can. One particular thing I remember, them talking about take the beam out of your eye before you take the speck out of your brother's eye. And
indeed.
So wait a minute, let me think. Just how bad am I before I'm criticizing somebody else? Which is what I try to do. Sometimes you just let go and you lose it, but all those kind of things. So many of those stories are just sort of about how you live and get on with people, aren't they?
Yes.
Really? Yeah.
My favorite story at the moment, I just recorded it for our messy church. My favorite story at the moment is my version of it is called the Hushabye Boat, and it's actually where Jesus calms the storm and brings comfort to his disciples in the middle of a raging storm. His presence there, and one of the reflective questions from that was, how do we respond when it seems like God's asleep in the boat and we're being tossed about? And I thought that was a really good question for turbulent times, and it's a good story for me. I've just been thinking about it a lot this week. So that's my go-to Bible story this week.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of people are stuck at home at the moment with all this going around. And I know, I like my mum. My mum, she's 94. She sits there watching world news all day long, and it's just death and destruction. And I sort of go in to say goodnight to her and sort of do her hot water bottle at 9 o'clock. And she says, what's it all about? And she's worried if she sees me out in the garden gardening in case I'm going to catch something. And I said, it's okay. And so I try to calm her down. And I think a lot of people have got very panicked about all of this, and that's where, to get away from the news, and the news is all about storytelling, and
yes,
it's about. It's agenda, isn't it? And the news know, we got a great story here, and this is going to run for weeks, and they're just churning it out. Whereas, if you just listen to all that stuff all the time, it's going to wind you up. So you need to go and find something more calming, another more calming kind of story, and a calming storyteller to just sort of build your faith up that we will get through this.
Although most people would never describe me as a very calming storyteller. I normally am out telling folktales, fables, and ramped up performance poems, but there we go.
Dear, oh dear. We've got a few comments here. Heinrich Reculev says, that's an amazing view. That's obviously out from outside your kitchen. And a Jamaican artist cartoon animation cartoon, which is the name of a YouTube channel, says, you got this. And Judy in the big shirt says, awesome view and cool patchwork.
Oh, that's my mother made that. My mom and I made that quilt together.
So that's real
5
proper.
years ago.
Yeah, so that's real proper American patchwork quilt. Fantastic. Carolina from Trails TM says, love you, Shoo. Oh, there we are. Thank you. I hope, get over that cough, I hope. Carolina lives in Germany, says, looking forward to an interesting show. Joyce says, wow, African storytellers are amazing. Christopher Rourke says, know what you mean about the Psalms. Joyce again says, like the reflective message, Renita. And Justin Taylor says, howdy. So, I kind of feel that, because this is a drawing show and people are going, where's the drawing? And we might get around to doing something there. I kind of feel when it comes to drawing that a lot of people, when they say, I wish I could draw, they don't mean I wish I could sit down and do a life study or do life drawing or something. What they actually mean is, I wish I could draw what goes on in my life in a journaling kind of way. And what they're really talking about is illustration, which is storytelling. And the thing that makes illustration different from abstract art or any other thing is that illustration is telling a story. And I think a lot of people, that's really what they want to do with their art. And you've started picking up a pencil a bit recently, haven't you? And sort of started doing things. And do things
I know.
But do you recognise that as a storyteller that you want to tell stories with pictures as well, or do you just want to do beautiful pictures around the story?
I don't know. I think for me the art part of it began because I'm a lifelong anxiety warrior is what I call myself. Okay. So I've always had difficulties with my mental health, and I'm pretty upbeat. I like to think of myself as a pretty upbeat downbeat, but the downbeat is definitely in there. And so I find that my arts, whatever art I'm involved in, whether it's storytelling, whether it's poetry, I love to write poetry, or paint tea bags, which is the crazy thing I'm doing at the moment.
We'll get to the tea bags, don't you?
It all is there partially to nurture nurture wellness in me, because I find whether if I'm sketching something or I'm drawing something or I'm splashing paint on something or I'm coloring something, my brain is quiet. It is about the only time in my whole life that my brain is actually silent. It can't focus on anything other than what I'm doing. And so I find that it really nurtures wellness in me. So I think I came to it, first of all, because I wanted to immerse myself in nature, because nature has been very important in my life, because the cabin the cabin that we have in Wisconsin by Lake Superior is in woodland. And so, we have all the critters, the bears and the possums and the raccoons and it's a very wild place. I love wild places. And where I live here in Wigtown, we're under wide, wild skies. And so nature plays such an important role in my well-being that usually when I sit down to create anything, it has a natural theme to it. So at the moment, I'm just kind of creating little things that I can complete and that help draw me to nature. But also, I am thinking about illustrating a little bit. Not something I'm not an illustrator, but I'm having a bash. I have some characters that need to be illustrated, and I can see them. I'm like you, like what you said earlier. It's very frustrating when you can see it in your head, but you haven't got the skills to necessarily do it. So I'm working on that. I'm being a little brave. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say to those of you who are watching, sort of, let us know why do you draw? Why do you draw? Why do you paint? Is it just for fun, or is it to decorate stuff, or is it just to calm your brain? Because it's something I've talked about. I've been doing this YouTube thing for about 10 years now, 11 now, I think, and I've often kind of talked about the left and the right side of the brain, and how the left side is about drawing and that kind of thing, sort of practical things, and then the right side is the language side. And that's the bit that tends to be chattering away all day long. And some people get a lot more chatter in their heads than other people. and once you start drawing, then the left side takes over, and it's the kind of the more creative side. And once you can really get yourself absorbed into a piece of artwork, then all these kind of ideas pop out as well, which you don't normally have kind of access to, and so it isn't just about creating something, because you could just doodle. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's getting into that frame of mind, which then allows the ideas to come. And some people often say, I don't know what to draw and everything. I just said, just draw anything. Just move that pencil about, and within 5 minutes you go, oh, that's rubbish. I've got this great idea. But you've got to start and get going on it. And
it's owing to you and to my friend Ruthie Redden, I think, largely, that I started the journey into art. I've always been creative about lots of other things. Like my family are like really off the scale creative. I think it's because when they first settled in Wisconsin, it's kind of a harsh environment, really. Very cold winters, very hot summers. And I think people had to be very self-reliant. So they had lots and lots and lots of skills in order to survive that. And I think we have carried those on now as hobbies. So there are people in my family who do amazing woodwork and pottery and quilting and painting, any craft or art form you can imagine. The skills are there in one way or form in my community.
We got G. Costa has said, I have ADHD, so drawing is a way to quiet my brain and focus on one task at a time. And then she's just posted as well, said, I also feel I never stop being a kid. Even at 35, when I pick up a pencil or paintbrush, I'm taken right back to my 7-year-old self in the feelings of excitement of what I could draw. Yeah, no, I've been, this morning I'm planning out some illustrations for a book, and it's just it's a bedroom, and there are these kids dressing up in the story. And so I put on M People with this sort of very funky stuff going on, and I was just having such fun, just scribbling away, because it's the very rough first stage at the moment, which is just the really exciting bit. Caroline says, I enjoy this very personal and honest interview. Thank you, Caroline. Jessica Toe says, I draw for fun and a way to escape. Yeah. And Joyce asks, do you have a specific time for drawing, Renita, like in the morning, or is it just when you feel inspired?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have a specific time for anything. I am not the most organized person in the world. I think, well, when I paint my tea bags, I tend to paint them at night before I go to bed or early in the morning. And I like to paint them because they are something that are simple and easy to achieve. I like writing poetry for the same reason. I mean, I will go back and edit poetry quite a lot, but I like to do it for that reason too, because you can actually achieve. In fact, it is National Poetry Writing Month. So you can write a poem every day in April. So I like to do that.
I write a poem about once every 5 years now, I think.
Shall I give you a challenge? You've made me an artist. You must become a poet.
In fact, I think, no, it's even longer than that. I think the last one I wrote was during the foot and mouth. I don't know if I could ever find that. Oh, I can't remember what it was. And that had a whole biblical references everywhere. It was, oh Lord, why have you forsaken us? I think was in there.
You'd be in good company, Shoo. Good company.
Because that really hit me hard. Where I live. Well, I mean, you must have had sheep there as well. Where I live, it's the forest, but the sheep kind of live wild in the forest. And in the end, they got the army in here, and they got a great big line of soldiers, and they walked their way through the forest, and they just shot everything. And all around there were bonfires, and you could smell burning flesh for weeks. And in the end, they dug a huge, great pit and put all the animals that they shot, the deer and everything, all went into this pit. And I was totally depressed for months. It's severe depression by that, I think. And again, it's probably the writing and the drawing and everything, which kind of sort of just keeps you going. Because again, it was like quarantine here. We weren't allowed to go into the forest, which was really hurt at the time. And I remember that the day they said you're allowed to go back into the forest, and I remember going over the stile there where there was a sign saying government warning, no quarantine, do not enter, and I thought, I'm allowed to, and going into this amazing forest that no one had been into for 3 or 4 months, and everything had overgrown, and it was the most extraordinary experience going back into the forest again. So, tea bags. We can't keep away from tea bags, can we? Shall I play your little film?
Okay, you play my film.
Okay, Renita has sent me a little film about tea bags, and I'm going to press this button, and we're going to see what it's all about. So that should be... No, it's not playing now, is it? No, why is that not doing? So if I come back...
Hello, my name is Renita Boyle, and I've been asked to chat with you today about creating art on tea bags. Something which I was inspired to do by Ruby Silvius. You can find her on Instagram. She is incredible. So let's go through a quick trip on how I do it. So first of all, I always have a cup of tea in my favorite mug. Yay! And everybody's got a favorite mug. Grab yours and enjoy a cup of tea while you create on a tea bag. Then you take your wet tea bag, and it will be really soaking and mucky. And if you want it to stay the color of the tea bag itself, you don't do anything with it except dry it. You can dry it with a blow dryer or leave it to dry naturally, whatever you want. If you want to have your tea bag to have color, even before you set out to do anything on it, then you can squirt it with ink or paint or anything else that you want to try while it's wet. And then you dry it with a hairdryer. and you slit the back of it with the scissors. Empty out all the tea. Then you want to iron it so it is nice and flat surface for you. Then you can do all sorts of incredible things with it. Sometimes I like to make a stencil of my own because I have not been trained in art, so I am just learning. And so I made a stencil of my own for this one, and I used pan pastels. I love the look of that, the richness of the colors. They're very lovely to work with, pan pastels. Sometimes I like to sew on my tea bags, embroider by hand on my tea bags. If you're going to do that, you need to have some kind of interface in the middle, piece of fabric in the middle where you've slit it so that it doesn't rip the tea bag. Sometimes I like to do it by hand, and sometimes I actually like to use my machine. So this one was done by my sewing machine, on my sewing machine. Sometimes I like to just use watercolor and see where I go, see how loose and lovely that is. Sometimes I try to paint a landscape. Just have a bash at anything you want. I quite like exploring quirky little characters, so that helps me to try and learn to draw and sketch. These were done with pen and ink and chalk mostly, and this one had some acrylic and some watercolor, I think, as well on it. This one was fun. I really enjoyed trying to do this from scratch, and I think he's kind of cute. He keeps me company during the day. And sometimes at its very easiest, you can just use pen and ink and do whatever you want to with that. So as you can see, the world is your oyster when you try to make tea bags of your own. And if you do, I hope you very much enjoy it, as I do. Here's to you.
And here's to you, Renita. Hang on, and here is to you, Renita. So, oh, let me do a clap. There we are. No, it doesn't want to clap. I have to do that. Yay! Fantastic tea bag. Renita, tea bags. What is this all about? Because okay. I see your tea bags popping up on Instagram every other day or something.
So I found on Pinterest, I think, a woman called Ruby Silvius, and she was painting on tea bags, and I thought, that's really clever. Now, this woman really knows what she's doing. I mean, she really knows what she's doing. And I thought, I'm going to try that. So my first one was like a little rectangle. I don't have it here, but it was a rectangular pink tea bag, and I just did a little drawing of an umbrella on it. And I thought I really quite enjoyed taking something, reusing it, recycling it. I just really enjoyed the process of doing it. So last year at this time, I was asked to do some storytelling around it's a kind of a mental health story that I've written, or, well, I don't like to call it a mental health story. I like to call it it's a story that is good for your well-being. And because as somebody who struggles with depression, I really hate it when I'm targeted. People say, this is what you need to read because you're depressed. I'm like, nah. It was like when I was first properly diagnosed, even though I've had it for my entire life, I didn't actually get diagnosed in any kind of way until I was in my 30s. And so essentially you manage it your whole life and to varying degrees. And when I first got it, I thought, they said, well, you really want to go to and they suggested going to a poetry group with other people who were suffering from depression. Now, I'm not saying that isn't helpful to people. It is really helpful to people. But I thought to myself, I don't think that would be helpful for me. So I started to go to a regular poetry group, and I suddenly discovered that I could actually write even when I wasn't depressed, much to my husband's delight. So wrote lots of poems and things like that. And so last year, I did some mentoring with Sarah Maitland, who's an author friend of mine, and I really wanted to write a woodland folktale that had a lot of nurturing in it, so that if you were going through something difficult, you could find yourself in it, in the main character whose name is Willow, but also so that if you were a friend, the characters in the story are woodland creatures, but they all do things that we would find our friends doing. Like there's a mouse who brings a basket of fruit and nuts and plays lively flutes and things like that. And it's just a lovely and nurturing story. And so I was asked to bring that with me to Earth Day this year and to do some kind of an art project. So I thought, well, tea bags are round, like the Earth, or they can be. So I thought, I'm going to make all tea bags round. And at the same time, there was going on this project called 100 Days Scotland, or the 100 Day Project, if you hashtag it, the 100 Day Project. And lots of people were doing one every day. So for the first 50 of those days, I managed to do one every day. And then we had we had a double death in the family in America, and I couldn't. Thank you. And I couldn't. There were other things that needed attended to. So I'm only just getting back into it now, and I've got a whole other year because I'm not going this year to paint more tea bags.
So I tell you what, I'm just going to switch over to a screen with Google on it, just because I just typed in Ruby Sylvia's tea bags, and all these amazing tea bags come up. Some of them are more square, and they have the little tags on, which are quite fun. You could make your own tags to go with them as well, couldn't you? Which would be fun. Yeah. And I'm trying to see what that one, and there's one here which has got a lady's frock, which is made out of a Lindor chocolate wrapper, which has been stuck onto it. So you got collage and all sorts of things going on there. So there are no kind of rules, I don't think, are there? And look, those are little tea bags being turned into like rugby shirts or something, I think, and little things like that. So there's a huge potential. But you've chosen to do the round tea bags as your thing. Yeah, because I guess that's what you have, round tea bags. I imagine, yeah, and so it's about recycling. It's about recycling too, isn't it?
It is. Well, I thought, it's quite interesting because from an ecological point of view, I think tea bags are not actually very recyclable, or there's plastic in absolutely everything, including tea bags. And so I wanted to create art. I'm going to flip it over, the camera over, so you can see. Okay. So I wanted to create art that actually reminds you of things that are beautiful in nature.
Yeah.
But also recognizing that they may last a long time.
Yes.
They're very fragile, so I wanted it to be a way of saying, you know what, this is a very beautiful piece of art, but almost everything used in the creation of this art is made of a plastic that is never going to leave the earth. So I actually wanted to use it both as a comfort and as a challenge. So that's why I'm doing round tea bags, and I'm quite fond of them now. And I think I'm getting better at them. I quite enjoy stitching on them.
Yeah. Yes, I noticed that. Yes, we got a comment from somebody. Let me go through the comments here when we start. Judy says, "Oh my goodness, gorgeous tea bags! Wow!" And then Joyce says, "Aren't they just so beautiful? Small is beautiful." And I think small is one of the things. You've got a very defined area there, haven't you?
Yes.
And you could maybe you could think about, you could start right from the making the cup of tea. And you're thinking, okay, I'm making a cup of tea now. So what's happening? What am I thinking about while I'm making the cup of tea? What am I thinking about while I'm drinking the cup of tea? And so the whole thought process can come through.
Yes.
Like, a bit like the Japanese tea ceremony, which is a great sort of, it's all about focus, isn't it? And so you could start right from the moment of boiling the kettle and sort of make it a moment, and then it's preserving the tea bag and sort of constantly thinking what's going to be. So you might think tomorrow I want to draw a dinosaur or whatever on my thing, so that when you actually come to boil the kettle, you boil the kettle as a dinosaur, so it becomes almost a performance almost, even to the whole finished end of the thing. What else do we have? Jessica Doe says, "Amazing! I've never seen that type of art. I really love the wolf one." Hannah Lambert says, love them, especially the flowers. Carolina says, how beautiful your tea bag art is. So many different ideas. I've never seen round tea bags before. There you are, you see. So this is one of the amazing things I find about doing these, is the people are watching from all over the world, and we get these sort of cultural differences that go along as well. Judy in the Big Shed says, the world is your tea bag.
Yes, I wish I'd said that.
Joyce says, love the landscape, Renita, keep going. Trails TM says, dandelion fluffy white one looks nice. Yeah, that's one that sticks out. What is that? That's cotton wool, is it? Or
yes, I just found little cotton wool and picked it apart. And,
yeah.
You know, it's not so nice on the back, but then who's looking?
Kathy Carmichael says, I sold a drawing of a group of dry tea bags. I thought I was the only one who found beauty in the humble tea bag. Now perhaps I can actually work on the tea bag itself. Absolutely.
Yes!
You know, new things every day, new ideas. Trails TM, use the tea leaf as moss and spray some of it green. Or use green tea. Seal it up in a small plastic sleeve, sell it and earn a pretty penny.
Do you know, it's very strange because I do things. I do the thing. I love doing the thing. It always amazes me when somebody wanted to buy it, and I'm like, it's a tea bag, you know.
It's a work of art.
It's a work of art, and I do love them. Actually, there's a little secret to mine that are kind of unique to mine, and that is, I'm going to turn it around and show you. You have to keep it a secret, though.
Okay, I won't tell anybody at all.
All right. So, you can't see. Oh, I have to turn around this way.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So in my tea bags, because I am a poet.
Yeah.
If I have painted on my tea bags, I've included a circle, a tag, so that I can paint the tag and write like a haiku or a small poem.
Right. Yeah.
Inside.
Excellent. And I can show you. I'm just going to change to the overhead camera, where there is a tea bag which I have prepared.
Yay!
And I have spent all day thinking, what on earth can I draw on there? And I cannot think of anything. So maybe somebody will suggest something in the comments, because there was a million things that I could do, but I just can't really make my mind up what I should do. I don't know. I think because you've sort of got that peachy brown colour there, that should sort of influence what it is that you're going to do somehow. But on the back, actually, interestingly, I'll show you. Can you see?
Yep.
On the back, I've got some lines going across it.
Ah, yes.
So if I had cut through on the other side, I could have used the lines for something. So maybe, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see this, Renita.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use this I'll just zoom in a bit. I'm going to use this as, yesterday I was drawing perspective. So maybe that's what I can do. And here I'm going to draw a telegraph pole and another one like that. And then here I'm going to draw another one. So what you can do with perspective is you can have the horizon line. You can have everything standing on the horizon line, so that we're kind of looking into the distance like that. And then we want another one about there. I'll sort of show you. I'll show you a little bit in a moment, Renita, because you're thinking, what is going on here? And there'll be another one kind of like that. So this is the horizon. So we'll just have this kind of a grassy thing there. And then we want to have these telegraph wires like that. So I want it to have a really lonely, Wisconsin feel about it. This is Clear Lake or Lake Wobegon or something like that. And then this will be, he used to be on the radio a lot, and I used to love Garrison Keillor, and then we'll, no, and then I'm just going to have a little skein of geese flying away into the distance. So, I need to go back to my camera there. Can you see? Probably not. No. I'm not sure which camera. No. Hang on, that's what you want to see. Like that. No. Okay. But anyway, so that's, yeah. And then if I go over to the... I'm not so sure. So if I go back to that, then I'm going to get my... I'm going to get the first set of paints that come to hand. And I'm just going to put a little bit of kind of green into there. And I need my kitchen towel. And I'll get a bit of blue. Sort of blue sky. Actually, I'm kind of feeling that... Actually, no, I'm going to want to have some... I don't know if that will show. But I'm going to have some... I'm going to try and do a kind of an evening sky. So I'm using... Okay, and so I'm trying to use the lines that are there in the tea bag. I'm trying to use them as a kind of a streaky kind of autumnal sky. And then I'm going to... I'm using watercolour, yeah, and then I'm going to try and get this dark sky to kind of fade down into it. Like that, and then we can have a bit of neutral tint, something greyish down here for the road down there. And then that is continuing our perspective lesson from yesterday's. So you can... With perspective, then the vanishing point is around about here. So you've kind of got the lines like that. And you're using that line of horizon to have as the base of where the telegraph poles are going off into the distance there. So there's my tea bag. That's just kind of... And I think that's... we want to get Renita back as well. Yeah, there. So that's... That's, I suppose, the lines going across it would kind of got me thinking about that. So there we are. So you got to find something within there maybe to inspire you and get you going. Yeah.
Actually, some tea bags are just like that. Others don't. Yeah. But look at this beautiful tea bag that came out. Just, I haven't done anything with it because it's so amazing just as it is. Let me see. Where did I find it? So... Look at this tea bag. Basically, when it was wet, I just dumped it in all kinds of ink.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And it automatically looks like there's sun, a sunset in a forest. That's does. What I see in it.
So you kind of you while it's still wet before you kind of dry it out, you're just flicking stuff in and random see what happens as well.
Yeah, so you can do anything. So sometimes, like, I had lots of Easter egg dye left from the kids last year. Oh, right, yeah. So I just chucked a whole bunch of tea bags in one go, and just to see and what they turned out like. And that they produce, so then the colors are there on the tea bag to begin with, and then you can do something on top. Other times I just take a straight tea bag with a basic color or just in its own right, its crumpliness, and go from there. But both ways actually work. Yeah. I don't like working in watercolor. I find it's tricky. So I was really amazed at how wonderful you got your tea bag to look like. You didn't treat it with anything first, did you?
No, I didn't at all. No, and it'll change as it dries out as well. It'll lighten up probably. Yeah. But we got.
I love pan pastels are really amazing.
Yeah. And when you say pan pastels, what is that? A brand, Pan, or?
I think so. This is what they look like.
Oh, I see. Oh goodness, I don't know those at all.
They're absolutely amazing.
I think a pastel as being like in a stick.
Yeah. So these are like, they're actually, I can't describe it. They're almost like makeup, but they're just colors, and you could squirt them and turn them into watercolor and all sorts of things. But they're chalk.
Cool. Now I think we got a culture thing going on here, actually. So let me follow through these. Let me follow some comments. So we got Judy again. Says of my thing. She says it makes her think of a scene from The Jazz Singer where Neil Diamond heads off on foot, guitar slung over his shoulder. Yeah, I know what you mean. Joyce says it linked wonderfully with yesterday's show. Jessica Taylor says your tea bag looks cool, Shoo. Thank you. And then Chrissy says that's a tea bag. And Trails TM says, oh my gosh, coughing badly. Trails, I think, you need to go and tuck yourself up in bed with a cup of tea. I'm off for a walk outside, fresh air, feel dizzy. Sorry, Shoo, be back soon. I hope you get better, and I hope you haven't got the. Corona Warwick says, Christopher Warwick says, looks like a cityscape. And Chrissy says, those look more like coffee pads. So I think, because we are a nation of tea drinkers, I notice that when I go abroad and I go to think I need a cup of tea, you go to the local supermarket or whatever and you look for tea, and it's usually Lipton's, isn't it? You can only get Lipton's, and they come in the little square, the oblong things with the little tag. And when I go abroad, tea is very often, a tea bag is very, very often. In fact, it's always in a little square bag with a tag, or maybe a little pyramid or something like that. Whereas we, I think, drink a lot of tea, and so there's none of this fiddling about with tags. It's just slap it in the mug and make a cup of tea. And so maybe round tea bags are a British thing.
I think they might be, or a particular brand. I can't remember what they are, but you can actually do. So this is my tea bag for the day.
Oh, right. There you go. Good. Yeah.
And it's on a string with a tag. So I do create tea bags occasionally that are rectangular with a string. But I just wanted to do something that would be mine, my kind of go-to thing. But those Lipton tea bags that you get, the ones that have big, then you've got a bigger canvas to use on. You can do anything with them. You can collage on them. You can print on them. You can use template. You don't have to be great at art at all to do to them, like me, And you can just any kind of thing. I bet if you looked up coffee filters or things like that on Pinterest, you'd find people do creative things with absolutely everything.
Absolutely. So we got Jessica Taylor asks, when using pastels, do you use any type of sealant? I'm not a proper artist, so I don't know what I'm squirting it with. But I am squirting the chalk with something that you would squirt chalk with so that it doesn't go everywhere. We call that a sealant, I think.
That's what I'm doing.
We got Mike Abel along here. It says,
hey, Mike.
Love the street.
Mike
is it's Renita's buddy.
Mike has illustrated 2 of my books.
Exactly, and Mike lives just down the road from you. And hi, Mike, how are you? Well, I hope, and sort of hunkered down and locked in, and yeah. So, Rebecca Dargan's artboard says masala tea is so tasty. Do you know masala tea? I don't know.
No, I don't like tea.
You don't like tea? So why do you...
I didn't like tea. I'm getting used to it.
You didn't?
When I first came to this country, everybody offered me a cup of tea. And then they would get offended when I didn't drink any tea. And so you can't be a minister's wife and not drink tea.
More tea, Vicar.
It pushes the boundary being a minister's wife who doesn't bake or cook. And sometimes I don't like people. But, you can't not have a cup. I do like people. Don't start a rumor in McTown. I love you all. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I kind of got into tea. Oh goodness, I think when I left home, and I got my first flat share, so I was 18 or something, and I don't know. I just suddenly got into all. I realised there was more than just a tea bag, and so I got into all these sort of weird teas, and gunpowder green, and beautiful things. And so now I have, for breakfast I have Darjeeling, and then in the afternoon we've ended up with this mix. So it's half Lapsang Souchong, which gives you that Chinese smoky flavour, and then the other half is a kind of Ceylon tea, but with strawberry in it. So you got this smoky strawberry flavour, and I don't drink it with milk. So I always used to drink it with milk, and I discovered going around schools, I would finish at the end of the day, my throat would be completely wrecked, and so I did a lot of research into what public speakers suggest, and how do you keep talking all day, which
you don't drink milk.
To both of us is not a problem, and it was the opera singers who all said do not drink milk, and so I sort of stopped drinking milk on the days I went to school, and it was magic. And so basically I don't drink milk anymore, and you're not going to die, your bones are not going to crumble, it turns out. That's what the Milk Marketing Board tells you.
I can't help it because I'm a dairy farmer's daughter. It's just never.
Well, there you are. Yeah. So I suppose I see tea in a slightly different way because I haven't got the milk, and so I'm sort of getting slightly different flavours and things as well. So Christopher Warwick says masala tea is great. Mike says, I'm good, thanks. People should know Renita had so much faith in me to be an illustrator. It's why my job. It's my job. And she is an amazing lady. She is an amazing lady.
Thanks, Mike. I think you're wonderful too.
and you can find Mike. I can't remember Mike's Instagram, but you'll find him on Instagram, and you can see his illustrations as he does them every day. Chris Bedry says, do you need to make a little easel out of matchsticks?
No, don't even tempt me. But I'm not taking up smoking.
But you could do a kind of a whole sort of found object thing, couldn't you? When you're on walks, you like sort of make little. It's got me going now. Pick up bits of bramble or something like that, and then you have to draw blackberries on them. Add a little easel that you make.
There's a whole. If you look on Pinterest, a lot of the crafts from Wisconsin and things too are just lovely. But people paint on feathers, and they paint on leaves. Yeah. Absolutely anything that you can find. Yeah. They do things with. Yeah. It's just a lovely thing.
Yeah, I noticed when we went to Canada once, and we kind of went from Calgary over the Rockies and then down to Vancouver, and I noticed on the Calgary side, wherever we were, if we went into a museum or something like that, then all the Native American crafts and stuff were all things that you would find in a dry plains kind of environment. So it was quills and feathers and stuff like that, and as soon as you got over the mountains, suddenly it was all wood and carving and shells and sort of sea stuff, and it's so related to the kind of countryside and the natural objects that were available immediately to you.
Yes, one of my favorite things. Well, I've got a deer antler to try it, is to make an antler basket. So the antler is the handle of the basket, and you weave.
Oh, wow.
They're amazing. And also one of the other native crafts to our area is pine needle baskets. So you make baskets out of little tiny pine needles. I have one of those. I've never tried making one myself. But it's very fiddly. So there's just lots of things.
Must be extremely fiddly.
I think that people benefit from all the things that they do. When we work with nature, when we touch natural things, we're connected to the earth and to the stories that are our life stories, and the stories that keep us going, and the stories that keep us faith, and the stories that help us to grieve, and the stories that help us to find wisdom, and the stories that help us to laugh. All of that is all connected, and it's just a great thing.
I've noticed that this week has been a joyous week for me because the clocks went forward here in the UK, and so we have an extra hour in the evening, and suddenly, so I find myself, it's cold, but I get my thick padded jacket on, and I'm out there on my knees every night weeding And because of this coronavirus thing, I've got it in my head. I got to grow vegetables this year, and so the last day before the garden centres and everything closed down, I went down and I got seeds and stuff, and so I'm sowing seeds and so I forgot what we were talking. It's being in touch with nature, isn't it? And getting my hands into the soil. It's such a great feeling, and also the compost. I've got a compost bin. It's just been rotting down nicely for about 3 years or something, and now I've opened it up and I'm spreading it around, and it's just lovely and crumbly, and it's being in touch with nature and getting right down into it, saying hello to the worms as you dig them up.
Would you like a story about gardening before we go?
Go on then.
Okay.
Tell us a story.
So it's got to go grow.
Do I have to go ooh?
Yeah.
Sorry, start again.
Grow, grow, turnip, grow. Now Papa Farmer said it's time to sow the prize-winning turnip for the county show. So we planted a seed and said, grow, turnip, grow, turnip, grow. Now Mama Farmer watered the seed that was sown. She did a little jig and said, grow, turnip, grow, turnip, grow. Now Joe pulled the weeds from the seed that was sown, and he slapped his thigh and said, grow, turnip, grow, turnip, grow. Now Flo put some shade on the seed that was sown, and she blew a little kiss and said, grow, turnip, grow, turnip, grow. Now the dog tasted the crows from the seed that was sown, while the cat and the mouse sang, grow, turnip, grow, turnip, grow. Well, they waited and they waited for the seed to take root. And one day they saw a leafy green shoot. They put their hands in the air. They said a little prayer, grow, turnip, grow, turnip, grow. Now one day Papa Farmer done gave a shout and said, come on everybody, let's pull it out. So Papa grabbed hold and they all gave a shout, pull, Papa, pull, but it wouldn't come out. So Mama grabbed Papa and they all gave a shout, pull, Mama, pull, but it wouldn't come out. So Joe grabbed Mama and they all gave a shout, pull, Joe, pull, but it wouldn't come out. So Flo grabbed Joe and they all gave a shout, pull, Flo, pull, but it wouldn't come out. So the dog grabbed Flo and they all gave a shout, pull, dog, pull, but it wouldn't come out. So the cat grabbed the dog and they all gave a shout, pull, cat, pull, but they wouldn't come out. So the mouse grabbed the cat and they all gave a shout, pull, mouse, pull, but it wouldn't come out. So they pulled and they pulled. They gave one last yell, pull! Up popped a carrot. And down they all fell. And they laughed because you reap what you sow. And they took their turnip to the county show.
And I'll give you a great big clap and applause there.
That's my version of that story. I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll grow turnip grow in your garden all summer, Shoo.
Absolutely, thank you. And that kind of chimes with what Fiona Kenshall was talking about this week, who's the agent and editor, and as she was saying, what she loved about the story was that big surprise at the end, because I didn't see that coming. And what have we got?
Somebody will publish it someday for me, Shoo. You never know.
You never know. Because that is an old one. It's an old story, isn't it, about the turnip that won't come out?
It's a folk tale with, which I didn't, which is what storytellers do. Yeah. They take old stories that have no author attached to them, and then they create their own versions of them. And that was my version of that.
We got Judy says, I'm clicking here. Rebecca Duncan's artboard says, awesome. Jackson Taylor's clapping hands. Judy says again, wonderful. And it kind of reminds me of my brother, who's just it's storytelling is in his genes. And I remember one Friday night, we lived in a village, and so everybody would go to the pub, and I came back from work, and So what? It must have been happy hour, quite early in the evening. And I said, "Oh, I've heard this great joke." And he said, "Oh, go on then." So I told him the joke, and he kind of laughed. And then 2 minutes later, he was telling this joke to somebody else. I said, "Wait, that's my joke. Wait a minute." And then, but he changed a word or something. And then the next person came in. He told this joke again, and he changed this something. And then he told it to the next person that came in, and the main character had gone from a man to a woman or something like that, or a cat to a dog, and over the next 20 people that came in, he would sort of rewrite this joke in his head and turn it into a story more than just a straight joke. And by the end of the evening, he got it off pat, and that was his story, and that's how he told it from there on. And he would always tell it sort of almost word for word, and you could just see him kind of writing and rewriting and editing this joke into a story as the evening went on. And I loved it at the end of the evening. That's my story. That's my joke. You know? But it wasn't anymore. It was his. You know, he'd taken it and done his thing. Yeah. Dear, oh dear. So what have we got? Rebecca, awesome. Yeah, wonderful. Brilliant. Going to be stuck in my head all day now, says Hannah Lamb.
Good, I hope so.
So, well, we've been at it for an hour, Renita, and I think it's probably time to wrap up and say thank you so much for being on here and just chewing the fat and doing that, chewing the tea bags. Stuff like that.
It's been my delight. And if people want to follow me, they can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Tail Twisters. And I have just this day launched 2 YouTube channels, so eventually you'll be
Is
able
that
to find
TALE?
TALE Twisters. And they'll be able to find me at Tail Twisters on Twitter and at Tail Twisters on Facebook. And Renita Boyle on YouTube, and Tell Together Tales on YouTube. But they're both brand new channels today, so you might have a hard time.
That's a lot of channels. So you need one place that's renitaboyle.com where people can find all those things.
Oh well, yeah, I do have a website too, renitaboyle.com.
You don't. Well,
YouTube thing.
You don't want to have too many channels. Yeah, you don't want to have too many channels and things going on because it gets really difficult to keep up with what's going on. Judy says delightful hour, thank you both. Joyce says great interview, back to the accounts. Yeah, get back to it, Joyce. You know you love it, really. Mrs. Rayner's actually doing my accounts at the moment. Thank goodness I have her to do that for me. So like I said, thank you so much, Renita, and have a wonderful time staring out of your window at that wonderful view. I have sat there in your window and looked at that view. I know how beautiful it is and how changeable it is as well, and how you can sit there and watch the sky and all sorts of things. Caroline says thank you so much, and I am now going to press the goodbye button and say thank you all very much for watching, and thank you so much, Renita.
You. Bye everybody.
Bye. Well, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed that, then please do make sure you are subscribed to the Shoo Rayner Drawing channel, and while you're about it, click the little bell next to the subscribe button and you will be notified when the next live drawing video will be. In the meantime, keep drawing, practice, and I'll see you next time. You take care now. Bye-bye.